So this was the this was like a medium quality build to Spotify any error we can see on this scene. So we just see here everything is absolutely perfect and fine, and here also everything is fine. But if you go like this here, so just pay attention on this area, you will find some splotchiness. If you can see here, you will find some splotchiness here, along with this camera issue which we already have tackled down. Now we so to remove this splotchiness, and this splotchiness is basically coming from skylight. So what we can do is, before rendering the final quality build, so now we are going to render the scene for the final quality, and for that what we will do is we'll minimize this too and make it unlit by pressing Alt 3, or maybe going from here. And we are almost everything is been done, and we are about to render the final quality cinematic. And before the final quality cinematic, you have to just go ahead and check for every errors. Now this error will be correcting right now before the final quality. There is a setting which we can increase so that we don't see this as splotchiness. So I will go ahead here again, and now we'll go to this layer, and then we'll select skylight, and in skylight we'll go ahead, and then in ray tracing sample per pixel we'll make it 64. Okay, and once we make 64 and we render it on final settings, this splotchiness will be not there anymore, and some roughness noise also there here on this thing will also be removed by the help of, when we go inside Windows and then movie render queue, and then we'll load this cinematic render, and then we'll go ahead here and then preset, and then click the render preset. And once we'll go ahead and increase this sample global ray tracings global illumination sample per pixel to 32, and then ray tracing reflection sample per pixel to 64. These are the only things you have to increase, and apart from this, so just go ahead and go here now in render output, and then again go here and then go back here and make a new folder so that your new final quality cinematic images will be saved here inside it. So select folder, and I just went ahead and given the high quality setting 32 and 64. I know that my PC will render this scene because I have already rendered this scene because when I was making for the first time. So I just go ahead and accept it, and I have also explained if it crashes your PC, then you have to decrease this by make this 32 and then render it. Again it's crashing, then make it like 16 and then render it and 32 like that. And if it still keeps crashing, then you have to make it 16 and increase this value to 128, and that way I am 100% sure that your PC will not crash while rendering the cinematic. So let's go ahead, accept this. So now final quality setting has been done here. I have also given an output folder here, and you can see this image sequence new folder is here now, and I have already loaded the preset and then adjusted the console variables for the final quality. And apart from that, before rendering the final quality, I also said that you have to go to skylight and make the sample per pixel to 64. Okay, and also in rectangle light you have to go ahead and make the sample per pixel to 64 here also, and in the spotlight also you have to go ahead and make the sample per pixels to 64. And if you are not using a skylight and instead you are using a sunlight for that dynamic light movement, and you want to give some animation in shadows, and you want to rotate the shadows, or maybe sun and then shadows will also rotate in real time with those amazing features, and for that purposes you are using sunlight, then you have to go ahead in sunlight also and increase the sample per pixel to 64. And you can also use this skylight and rotate this angle. Like if you go ahead here, and if you rotate the skylight from here, like if you go here skylight and then rotate from this angle, you can also just change the you can also change the shadows. Maybe animated shadows will be there, but I'm not sure whether we can give a animation on this source cube map or not, because we don't see these keys which can be given on here. But to best thing will be you can use the sky sunlight for that shadow animation inside real time. So okay, let's go ahead, proceed further. And here also we'll go to spotlights and then go ahead and make sure for final quality render you have to go ahead in console variables, make it 32, 64, rest everything will be same as the medium quality one. And in skylight, sample per pixel 64, rectangle sample per pixel 64, and a spotlight sample per pixel 64. It is very important. Just you cannot accept this, you cannot miss this, because this will reduce the quality of global illumination and it will introduce lots of noise in the scene. Even if you are rendering with all these final quality settings, they will not be quite enough. So make them enough. You have to increase the sample per pixels of every light you have used in the scene to at least 64. Sometimes I also render on 128, or sometimes I make render on 256. Sometimes I may render on 512, because if you have very high quality and powerful graphic card, you can go ahead and increase this to 128, 256, whatever you want. But 64 is bare minimum, and it's absolutely crazy quality you will get in terms of noise removal and all those things. So no problem, you can go ahead and use 64 along with this console variable qualities, and your cinematic will look absolutely amazing. So we have done all these things, and I will go ahead again and then save I will save this project again, and I will go ahead and then click render. So, and before rendering the cinematic, what we can do is I will just go ahead and show you one more thing. We can go ahead and make an exe. So before making an exe, we can go ahead and switch off this to default, and this one is also to default, and this one also to default. So let's make an exe from it, and then after that we'll increase these samples and then render the final quality. So if I go here right now, and then if I play here, then a denoising which we have already put here in blueprint, level blueprint, this denoise will be on because we already played it or simulated it. And now you can see it's absolutely perfectly no denoise in the scene, no issue, but it's using final gather here from the this post process volume. But when we render through this, it will use a brute force and all those things, and quality will be applied over it when we will be rendering the cinematic from here. Okay, so this is the way you can work in a real-time scene. So let's go ahead, and after we make it like final gather and then decrease this sample per pixels, just go ahead, save this file, and then go in file, and then you have to go to package project and then go to your window. And one more thing you have to notice here right now. So if we go ahead and press Ctrl Shift H, then now you can see in the viewport, if this viewport is small, then the frame rate is 32, and if you make it full screen, then its frame rate is 30, which is not good while we are moving inside or exploring the scene inside our exe. So to keep this window to a small size so that you can go ahead and get an experience, if you don't have a high quality graphic card like RTX Titan and Quadro 6000 or 8000, what you can do is you can go to this new map and then level blueprint, and just duplicate this execute console command, and then connect this console command here, and then just press tilde key, and you will see here, and type r dot set res, you see, set resolution, and then a space, and then 1280 into 720, and then W, and just copy this and paste it here. So you see, so when you build an exe, and you can go ahead, and when you want to explore it, it will automatically open it in a fixed window, small window, so that you can get a very good frames like 30 fps at least, and you can explore the scene without being junked in the scene. Okay, so this is very important. If you want to make an exe, just go ahead and put a set res 20 into 720, and then W for windowed mode. So if you have put here W, then that exe will start in windowed mode, so it will not be automatically a full screen. So even though resolution will be for half, like 1280 and 720, if we don't put this W, and if we put this F, then automatically the window will be full screen, and it will again drop our frame rates. So instead of that, you just go ahead and type W, so that when exe will start, then it will start in Windows mode, and we can see how it performs. And anyway, we will be going ahead and seeing that ourselves, how it behaves because of this command. So let's go ahead now, save all, and now we'll go ahead and then pack this into an exe. Like, we'll go in C drive, because C drive is my SSD hard disk. So let's go ahead, select this folder, and then just go ahead and click it here, and let the exe get built. We can also make this to unlit now, so that it's not a burden on the viewport and the RAM, graphic card RAM. So as you can see that our exe has been built, and now let's go ahead and then minimize this, and go to the C drive, and go to new folder, Windows, and then open this my project. And because we have given that r.set resolution to windowed mode and 1280 and 720, our Windows will automatically be a windowed mode. Our exe will automatically be in Windows mode, and now you can see here. And this one is using the, like, if you go here, this one is using the post process volume, all these settings default low quality settings, because if we increase these settings in our real time, then it will be like 1 or 2 frames per second, because no matter what graphic card you are using, if you increase this quality, you cannot have your experience in real time. So for that, we have to just use it. As of now, we have to use it final gather. You can go ahead and then, like, if you go ahead and then minimize this, and I can go ahead and then take a look on our project and have it in real-time experience. And this one is using fully dynamic, so no GI whatsoever. So if you want to give any interactivity or do anything, you can go ahead and do that and move object in real time. And in interactivity, you just, possibilities are endless. You just have to have a very good graphic card. So now let's close this, and again go to this Unreal Engine, and now we will go ahead and then render the final quality, render the cinematic on final quality. And for that, what we will do is, we will select this as skylight, and then sample per pixel to 64, as I told you earlier. And then we have to make the sample pixel for rectangle also to 64, and then a spotlight also to 64. And then we will go ahead and cross check movie render cube, and here console variables, that this global illumination sample per pixel is 32, and then ray tracing reflection sample per pixel is 64, and rest everything will remain. So this is the for the final quality. And also you have to just change the folder or where you want to render the final quality version of your cinematic video. So now we will go ahead, and then before that we just make sure you have to make sure that all it is on, and you just close every application possible. My graphic card is quite strong, so I will not have to close all the applications that are running, but you might have to close all the running application. So I will close most of them, like here, and then DJ view, and this one also I will close it. I can keep these files open, and then we can go ahead and then close this. So as you can see, almost all the applications are closed now. And go ahead, file save, and now we'll go ahead and then click render, and it will start rendering. The file will be start rendering. So I will see you all after the final render has been done, and we will see how our final render looks. So as you can see now, our high quality cinematic video has been rendered, and now it's time to see how well it's rendered. So it took me, so here you can see it's rendered now 600 frames, and now let's see how much time it took to render it. So it took 2 hours to render the high quality cinematic with all these variables, high quality variables put here on in the console variables settings. And let's go ahead and see our cinematic video. So we'll go ahead and start DJV view image sequence viewer, and now we'll go ahead and then I will just drag this from here to here, and then I'll just go ahead and minimize it. And now we can go ahead and then click press and make sure our FPS is 30 here, and let's just see how it has been rendered. So on this camera no problem, no issue, and on this camera also no issue at all, and on this camera also no issue. So absolutely bug free rendering has been done, and there is no noise whatsoever inside the scene, and the GI bonds is very nice. And now we can go ahead in Premiere and then bring this image sequence into Premiere, and then color correct and just remove some, maybe give some curves, RGB curves, and then brightness, contrast, sharpness, and then color correction. Whatever you want to do on it, you can go ahead and do it inside Premiere or any video editing software. But as you can see, it's absolutely perfect. So I will close that. And one more thing I would like to explain here in movie render queue is, suppose you are rendering the cinematic, you have clicked this render local, and then you are rendering the cinematic, and maybe there is a power failure, or maybe your Unreal Engine crashes, or then your something any happens, or maybe your PC is restarted by some problem, and your animation or rendering is halted in between. So you have to go ahead and see the frame, see in the folder about how many frames your rendering has been finished. Okay, and once you get an idea about how much frames have been written, or how many frames have been rendered, like we said that 170 frame from here to 170 it's rendered, and now Unreal Engine restart or crashed, or maybe PC restarted by some any reason. So now you want to render it from 171 to maybe the remaining 600 till 600. So you can do that by going here in settings, and in this here you can go to output. Then okay, you have to open Unreal Engine again, and then come here and then load this render preset, and then again select the folder you are rendering in, and you have to come to this frame in output in movie render queue and this setting panel, output, and then in frames, you have to go ahead and use custom playback range. So you can just click this on. Now you can press 171 here, and then we already know that we have 600 frames in this our cinematic video sequencer. So if you can see here we have 600, so you can go ahead and put it here like 600. So it's a very nice option. So if by any reason your rendering is halted in between, so you can just figure out how many frames have been rendered, and then you can go ahead and use this thing tool to render from the remaining of to render the remaining frames. So it's very useful. So I will just reset it now because we will not be using this as of now. And one more very important thing is, suppose your PC is not able to render high quality settings like 32 and 64 and all these settings. Okay, so what you can do is to remove the noise and anti-aliasing. You can go ahead and then render the complete sequence with low quality like 16 and 16 and render it on 4K like 3880 and 4K resolution. That means make it 4K and then make it like here you have to go ahead and then just see the resolution of 4K. Like we have to go and see the resolution of 4K. So you can see 3840 into 2160. So you can go ahead here and put 3840 and 2160 and render the whole scene in 4K resolution. And when you are editing that, then this whole sequence will be in 4K. Okay, and now you can go ahead and then when you are editing the video or compiling this image sequence into a video and doing all the color correction and adding contrast and all those things in Premiere, you can downscale the entire sequence into 1K. So if you do that, then it will be like extra crisp. The video will be extra crisp and it will be like high quality. So if you want, you can also do that. But if your graphic card is rendering out of the box with all this high quality, so then you don't need to do that. You can just render it in 1K. But if your PC is not rendering in the high quality with all these settings, then you can go ahead and then render it in 4K resolution with normal quality like global versus sample pixel to 1616, and then after rendering in 4K you can go ahead and downscale in any video editing software to 1K, and then your result will be like very crisp. So I click accept here. So as you can see, we have rendered the scene and now the GI is gone. So what I will do is I will after this final quality cinematic has been rendered, so again I will go in the lights and reduce all the sample per pixels because they make the scene very heavy. So I'll go ahead on skylight, reduce this sample per pixel, and a rectangle, and I will just reduce this sample per pixel, and then a spotlight also I will reduce the sample per pixel. So now you can see our frame rates is very nice. So just make sure that once your final cinematic rendering is done, go ahead and remove this, and anytime you want to render the final sequence again, you can go ahead and then increase the sample per pixel. So I just reduce this and I will press Ctrl Shift S to save this file, and I will close this Unreal Engine project and I will open again so that I can get that GI bonds. So I just close Unreal Engine and then I will open it again. So I can see the tutorial project here in recent projects. So I can just double click on it and it will open it. So as you can see, our project is again open. So I will just go ahead and close this movie render queue. And if you want to render again, then you can just go ahead and click cinematic and then click here, and then in preset you can just click render presets and you will get everything here now. And you can just change the image sequence location again, and then you can just click hit render, accept here, and then hit render. You will be rendering the entire scene again, or maybe cinematic again. So let's go ahead here right now And while I was watching the preview of the high quality cinematic, I just saw that this here it's not proper, like it's here. If you see, this texture needs to be rotated, right? So let's rotate it. So if I go ahead and open this texture or maybe material, I can see here like there is no UV rotation thing here in this one. So I'll go ahead, select this wooden floor, and I will go ahead and open this, or maybe let's select any mega scan material. So I have given that feature in mega scan main default material. So I'll go ahead, open it, and I will just copy this rotate UV thing from here and right click and copy, and I will go ahead here, open this, and I will just click clean up from here, and I will go ahead and then paste it here, and I will just go ahead and then like do this from here, and I will also copy this UV texture coordinate from here, and then I will just, or maybe we can just copy everything here, like it can also be done very easily. So let's go ahead and delete this and then paste it, and then apply this on UV, and then just click apply. And if you go now here, select this material, open it, so now we can see that rotate UV is on here, right? So we'll go ahead, select this material again, and you can see rotate UV is here now, and we'll just go ahead and select whether this material is being used by a other object or not. So it's not it. So I will select this, right click, select action, select actor using this material. So lots of objects are using this material. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and duplicate this material and make it as an instance material here, and then we'll apply this to here, this object and this object also. Now we can go ahead and we can rotate these UVs, so maybe 0.25. So now you can see we have rotated this, so now it's looking better. Earlier it was not looking good, because I think it was clearly visible that the UVs are not good and rotated properly. So now we can go ahead and do this. So what I do is I went ahead in mega scan base default material, and I just copied the UV manipulation node, that is custom rotator, and then select two vector and then a scalar vector and all those multiply and all those things. It's very simple, not any big problem, nothing any complex thing is going on. You just copy it here, and then I pasted it in this material, and then I just went ahead and duplicated that material and selected that, and then duplicated it, and then applied it on this object, and then I rotated the UV maps of UV of that object. So now it's looking proper. And after that, one more thing I will try to explain is very important thing. If I go here like on this object, and if I go like this, so you can see specularity, lots of specularity here of a skylight. So if you want to remove the specularity of skylight, there is no option as of now. But if it's a sunlight, so if you go ahead here in a skylight, you cannot reduce the specularity on sunlight. So you can go ahead here in a skylight, and if you see here, you cannot decrease the specularity of a skylight. But in case you are using a sunlight, like if you go ahead and then add a directional light or sunlight, make it like movable, so you can go ahead, come here, and then you can decrease this specularity. You have to just be aware of that. It's very useful sometimes, because if if you see the noise, and the noise in specularity is not being removed whatever you do, then no matter what you do, so you can go ahead and decrease the specularity specular scale of that light, and it will be okay. And this can also be done on this rectangle light. So you can go ahead here and then expand this, and you can also decrease the specular. So we can do it right here now. So if you make it like 0, you see no specular, but specular is very important and needed for getting the realism. So you have to decide whether you want to maybe have 0.35 or maybe 0.5 or maybe 0.65 or maybe zero point 0.1, or you want to disable it, or maybe you want to keep it all. So I generally tend to use the specularity with the full quality, but if you need, you just be aware that you should be aware of that you can reduce the specularity from reflection with the help of this tool, or maybe this option present inside this light. And this can also be removed from this spotlight, and I have already removed the specularity from spotlight, because these spotlights are very big in radius now, like source radius is very big, and it will be reflecting it like big circle, as I showed earlier. So you can remove that. I don't like specularity of a spotlight whatsoever, at least in real ray tracing. And also don't like it in baked version, but in ray tracing, that's for sure, I always tend to remove it, because in baking version I generally use 3 to 4 of source radius, and that goes well, and it cannot be spotted like bad thing in the render. But in ray tracing we have to make the contact shadow smooth, and for that we have to increase this to maybe 65 sometime, and then generally 30. So you have to just remove the specularity from spotlights straight away, no doubt about it. So one more thing is, I generally have noticed that when the reflection is between 0.25 of, when the reflection of any object or any material, any object's material is between zero point 0.2 to zero point 0.4, then we get the maximum number of maximum number of noise, or maximum noise in this maximum noise in this material. So try to avoid giving 0.2 or maybe 0.25, or maybe between 0.25 to 0.25 to zero point 0.4. So if you decrease it to 0.1 or maybe 0.05 or 0.025, 0.075, 0.1 also, you will not get too much of noise in the reflection. And here I see that by mistake I have given 3 instead of 1, so you can just make it 3, and it will cast no effect on the material whether it's 1 or whether it's 3, no problem, because maximum is the 1. So I said in the tutorial that I am going to make it 1, but I made it 3 by mistake. So I just saw it now, and then I remember that I have made mistake, so I just corrected it to 1. So main idea behind is try not to use reflection amount between 0.2 to 0.4. Try to use above 0.45. Try not to use the reflection between 0.2 to 0.4. Try to use above 0.4 or below 0.2. So maybe 0.15 or maybe 0.1 will be better. And I generally just go ahead and stick with 0.1, and I can decrease and increase the intensity of a specularity by the help of this specular. So I just go ahead and make it 0.1, maybe 0.25, all those, and decrease and increase the specularity level. So if I go here, if I press make here 1, and maybe I can make 0.1 and 0.0, 0.05 like that. But control this specularity with help of a specularity, and then make the roughness, always make the roughness to 0.1. That's best for real time. So just remember a tip, just try to remember that tip. And one more thing, that this scene which we have finished our scene is, I will not be providing this scene 3D Studio Max scene with the tutorial, because you can apply all the techniques that I have shown inside the complete tutorial on any kind of interior scene. So and I don't want to make you or force you to use your technique which I have been teaching here inside on this file. So go ahead, choose your own project model by you, or maybe you have any scene, and just apply the whole technique which I have explained in this tutorial on that scene, and you will be able to make it realistic. And this whole technique which I have explained can be used in any number of object or any type of interior object. It will work very well. That is no doubt about it, because I have already tested the whole technique on 9 different projects for interior, and after that only I was absolutely sure and confident that this is going to be perfect solution, and this can be the best way to do a ray tracing. Though I have not taken a lot of optimization thing in this tutorial. So main purpose of doing this whole scene was to render a high quality cinematic video, and that I can easily render it in 2 hours. That I showed you that high quality cinematic video was rendered in 2 hours. So the main purpose or main reason of doing architecture version using ray tracing in engine is to render high quality cinematic video as of now. And the moment this will be going, the ray tracing will be going optimized by the Epic Games, and then we can also use it for real-time interactive full experience like baked version. But as of now, it's not really useful for interactivity. But if you go ahead with use this post-process volume with limited bounds like final gather only, you can still go ahead and get a good uh, frame rate, that's for sure. And if you get a very powerful graphic card like Titan RTX or maybe Quadros, then this FPS will be even better on the full screen also. So you can use the final gather and you can use it on full screen, then FPS might be good. But I'm not sure about it because I don't have Titan RTX, or neither I have a Quadro 6000 or 8000. So I'm just assuming it. But with file gather and a small screen, we can just go ahead and use it for interactivity. And for finals, for high quality cinematic rendering, we can, for high quality cinematic video rendering, we can use any type of RTX graphic card. That's for sure. I'm 100% sure about this will work for rendering high quality cinematic video. So we are almost at the end of our tutorial. So now what I will do is I will go ahead and explain some of the optimization techniques. If we didn't optimize this thing too much, because I already knew that no matter how much I optimize it, it will still not be usable to make high quality interactive experience inside the scene. So mainly our aim will be to render a high quality cinematic video. But still, if you want to know what all the optimization process could have been, so I will just bring a Excel sheet here on this screen, and as you can see here, there is I have made all the optimization thing, that optimization tips and techniques for ray tracing scene in Unreal Engine. So I will go ahead and explain all these points which I have written here. So the first point you can see is make master materials according to blend modes of the required materials in the scene, like one for opaque and one for transparent. That means, let me minimize it. So as you can see that we are using this this is a master material which was created once we imported the first material from Quixel Bridge. And this master material has a lot of node and a lot of settings, and we went ahead and applied our own settings which we required for inside this. So we amended it, and you can go ahead and amend it further no matter how much you want. But the basic technique is, every time we'll go ahead and import material or find a material from Quixel Megascan and then export and import it through Breeze inside it, then those all material will be instance material, and they will share this master material they will share this master material properties. So every time, no matter how much material we are using in the scene, they will all be instance, and this optimization technique says the same. So try to use as much instance material as possible, and make, suppose this master material will only work on opaque objects because the blend mode is opaque, okay? But if you want to make some transparent master material, so, or maybe you have to make 10 transparent, or 10 material with transparency, so you can make another one more master material with the transparency, that blend mode to translucent, or maybe adaptive or modulate or mask, whatever it could be. That means you have to have master material depending on the blend mode. And once you have that, so if you want to make any translucent or opacity material with opacity, you can use the master material with blend mode translucency. And if you want to make any material of opaque surfaces like metal surface and all those things, you can use master material for that or blend mode of opaque. So that means you have to have few master material properly tweaked, and adequate amount of feature you have to provide in that master material, so that when you create an instance out of that master material, you can go ahead and change all type of you can get all type of result on that material. So if we go ahead, right click here and then create instance material, and we want to apply it, so we can see here we will be having lots of feature, like we can change the albedo texture, we can change the normal texture, we can change the roughness texture, we can scale the UVs, we can scale the UVs on U direction and scale UVs on V direction, and then we can change the albedo color, and we can set the albedo intensity. All these features are default done by Quixel Megascan material. That is why I like using Megascan material so much. And we can also check whether it is metallic or not. It's base metallic. A base metallic amount you can set, roughness we can set, how reflective it is. We can give it normal intensity, we can give a specular intensity, and we adjusted this blend color between color and then texture. If you want to mix the color and texture, or maybe remove the texture and use our color, so we can go ahead use that also. So if you go ahead and click this blend amount, and if I make it 1, and then now you can use this blend color, so you can go ahead and then make it any color, so you can use this also. So basic fundamental is you have to have few master material that are made according to the blend modes, and those master materials should have adequate amount of features. So if any artist, or if you are using or to make material on any surface from that mode, or that after creating an instance material from here there, you can go ahead and give every type of required properties that are basically for architecture visualization. So I hope you understand what this means. Make master material according to the blend modes for the required material in the scene, like one for opaque and one for transparent. So I have written it in my way. So while I was learning ray tracing and experimenting and exploring it for maybe more than 2 months right now, so I just came across different ideas and found different things which can be implemented on optimization techniques. So I'm just going ahead and explaining all of them in front of you right now. So the second option is use as much instance material as possible to reduce a strain on GPU and gain FPS in the scene. So if you remember, every time I was so every time I was going ahead and changing the materials and correcting the materials, I was always trying to convert the material into instance and then applied it. So if you give a close attention. Then every time I made anything in the scene in material wise and corrected everything, I converted into an instance, and or maybe I created instance and then I applied the instance version. So the basic approach, overall approach, should be your 99 or maybe 100% of the material that are applied on your scene, on the object in your scene, has to be in instance form. So that should be material instance. That way Unreal will not have to uh, compile shaders too much, and the instance material are always lighter in the scene. So I hope you understand that also. Now let's go to use console commands on level blueprint for general purpose like final gather and denoising the GI. So you can see here we have already went ahead and I show you how to do that. We have applied this general console command of on event begin play in level blueprint of this ray tracing global illumination denoiser. So because I have already explained you, denoiser is broken as of now in ray tracing, so we'll just switch off the GI denoiser. To switch off the GI denoiser, I have given 0 here, and I have also given a set trace command to 1280 and 720. So if you want to make an exe out of your project, you can just make it, and that exe will be running in a windowed mode, so you can get a better frame rate in the exe. So you also understand this. Use console command on level purpose for general purpose, like this is general purpose, this one is too, and advanced purpose I have shown how to use it or give it then movie render queue. So on general purpose this should be always there when you are working for ray tracing. At least if you don't want to make a exe and you want to only make to cinematic video, you can avoid this, but this should be used every time, because in viewport you find less noise and you have to do lot of thing in the viewport while you are making the scene, like material and lighting and all those things. So it should be having GI, and the GI should be as good as possible. That means this should not be denoised improperly, because if we switch it off, it's no more denoised improperly because the denoiser is broken. GI denoiser is broken as of now. So let's go here. Try to on the fourth part, try to adjust reflection and noise as much as possible from material settings and use high quality setting in the movie render queue. So let's add is QUEQ while rendering cinematic movie along with increased sample per pixel on every. So let's on every light type. So let me explain this. Try to adjust reflection and noise as much as possible from material. So like if we have noise here, okay, if we have noise material here, so as I showed that if we go ahead and put the material to 0.2 and between 0.25 but between 0.2 to 0.4, then it will have lots of noise. So always try to reduce the noise from the material itself. Like don't go ahead in here post process volume and then apply, like go ahead in ray trace reflections and go ahead and increase this to reduce the reflection, because this will be applied on whole scene and the FPS will be dropping like too much. So instead of using this 0.6 and increasing it to 1, try to avoid adjusting this setting and try to make the reflectivity too much and decrease the specularity. That way you can control the reflection and you will try to, and you can avoid some reflection noise, and rest will be when we apply lots of and rest we when we apply high quality settings, those reflection noise will be removed. So instead of trying to increase this one to reduce the reflection, reduce the reflection material voice, like go ahead here and then you can just decrease, and you can just watch it like here if you want, and it's already a instance material. So don't, you see here, if I make it 0.2 here, so you see lots of noise here. So instead of removing the noise from here, and you are using post process volume, don't use post process volume. Try to remove the noise by making the material more reflective. And if you want to reduce this specularity, you can reduce the specularity from the light itself, as I have shown you, like rectangle light. And then you can go here and then reduce the specular level, or from here also you can reduce like this 0.25. So try to adjust to remove the as much noise as possible from reflection on material level, instead of applying and going ahead and removing from uh, post process, because it will make the scene heavy, and it will be, this will be applied on every object of the scene, so it will make the frames drop. But if this one, if you will do like this, then it will be per object basis, and it will not affect the FPS too much. So I hope you understand that. And when you are rendering the final quality, you can just go ahead and increase the sample per pixel from here, and then this noise will be absolutely gone. So simple formula of reducing the noise from reflection in Unreal Engine ray trace scene is going in the light, all type of light, and then just increasing the sample per pixel to 64, along with all the high quality settings I have shown. And I have experimented like anything, lots and lots of time, hundreds of time I have rendered it, seen, and then find out the best solution here and best possible quality solution here. So it was a long experiment here, right? So after that, you can also go ahead and now, since we have this as low quality, you just remember, if you are rendering the high quality, it has to be 64, 32 and 64, because I render the high quality on that. But on normal general purpose quality, you can keep it 4:4 and then render it. It will take only 15 minutes, 10 minutes and render it, and then you can increase only these two settings. So I have said that so many times in tutorial, so let it be. So you can increase the light map sample per pixel to reduce the noise in reflection. That is the best option to remove the noise in reflection in ray tracing scene, by increasing the sample per pixels of rectangle light. But that will only be increased when you are going to render the final cinematic. Don't make it, or increase it at the working, or maybe you are working inside the scene. So let's go ahead. Advantage of ray tracing reflection are that it reflects the object that are not in camera. So that it not in camera view, so it reflects the surrounding objects too. Like, it means if there are objects, so suppose this reflection is there, and if it can also reflect, like this object can also reflect a object from here which is not in this camera view. The biggest advantage of ray tracing reflection is that it can reflect objects that are not in camera view also. Let me explain, like here, let me find a good example. So as you can see here, these lights here, if we go here, and we can see that in camera view these lights are not visible, right? But they are still being shown in the reflection because of the ray trace reflection, because ray trace reflection has this great advantage. And that advantage is, even the object is not visible directly in the scene, can also be seen in the reflection. So I think we have to, yeah, we have to give a material here. I think I just missed it, so no problem. It's a real time and you don't worry about it. You can just go ahead and do whatever it can. It's amazing technology. So you understand this point now, that advantage of ray tracing reflection are that it reflects the object that are not in camera view, so it can reflect the surrounding, so it can reflect the surrounding objects too, like anything that is not visible in camera, it can reflect. That is the advantage of ray trace reflection. So let's go to the next point. Try to avoid controlling and removing roughness from post-process volume, as this affect the entire scene and is responsible for a pitch drop, which I already explained. So instead of going in post-process volume and then increasing or decreasing this max roughness, like if you go here, let's go to this object now, and if you go ahead here like post-process volume, and if we decrease it and we increase it, so try to do not touch this. Instead, go ahead and decrease and try to remove the noise on the material level, which I have already explained. So just be aware of that. Try to avoid controlling. Okay, this one is done. Now seventh one, use final gather GI while in the editor to do the lighting and tweaking materials of the scene and animating camera for the cinematic. So I have already explained this while I was teaching. So while you are in viewport in the scene and working condition, use post process and the final gather GI with nothing optimized or done or nothing changed in the property, and use this GI final gather GI to work and finish the entire scene. Okay, and once you have finished the scene, use the final gather while in the editor to do the lighting and tweaking materials of the scene and animating on the camera. And once you have completed the scene, and we are going ahead and then adjusting all these parameter console variable. So now here we are directing Unreal Engine to use brute force GI with good amount of bonds, that is 3, and render cinematic. So we have just playing a smart here. To work, we are using final gather because final gather is light, and still we can just go ahead and move and navigate. It's very easy. But if we change it to final gather with 3 bonds, or brute force or with 3 bonds, and it will like frame will be dropping like 2 or 3 and will not be able to work. So I hope you understand what I meant here. Use settings in movie render queue to use brute force GI while rendering final cinematic video along with various other console variables. So I just explained it. So while you are working in viewport, you use final gather, and when you are going to render it the final cinematic, you can give these settings and use the brute force to render the scene. So I already explained this. So now let's go to the next point. Okay, ninth point. If a specific light is causing GI noise in the scene, then you can turn off the GI contribution of that light in the light property setting. So suppose if any requirement or due to some reason you want to switch the GI contribution of this light alone, so all the light will cast the GI, or maybe this GI is causing too much of noise in the scene, or maybe you want to just use this light and you don't want to use its GI. So what you can do is you can go ahead here in this, select that light, and here if you go to this light properties or light settings, scroll down here, expand this triangle. You see here near volumetric scattering, you can just expand it, and when I click here you can see an option, affect ray tracing global illumination. So if you click this off, that means this light will be on, it will contribute to the lighting of the scene, but it will not emit any GI. So it may be useful sometime that you don't it may be useful sometime to remove the noise of any specific light that is causing noise in GI. So you can use this uh, technique or use this parameter wisely when you require it. I just explained you because you have to have the knowledge that this can be done, and there is setting which can come handy if required sometimes. So let's go to point 10. If a skylight is used to light the scene, then switch its parameter to cast ray trace shadow and increase its sample while rendering the final cinematic, but not while working in the editor, and make the skylight to static. So I have explained everything about this, but let me summarize it. So if you are using a skylight in the scene for making this exterior look good, okay, so what you have to do is and get a good amount of light inside here also, and all this effect you see here, this contact shadow effect you see here, these are created because of this skylight we have introduced in here. Okay, so when you are using a skylight in the scene, you have to go ahead and use it as a static, not a stationary, not movable, even though in ray tracing every light has to be movable, but that is not the case of a skylight. In skylight you have to make it static, even though you are using ray tracing and everything is dynamic, you have to make it static, first thing. And the second thing is you have to just go scroll down here and then click on this button, and you have to just switch off the lower hemisphere. It is not extraordinary mandatory, but this cast ray tracing shadow is extraordinary because by default it's not on, and if it's not on you will not get a good quality shadow. So you can see here, if I just click on how good quality we get the shadows, but if it's not on we will not be getting good quality shadows from the sun skylight. So always remember so this. And while you are whenever you are using a skylight, you can see here all this splotchiness. If I go ahead and switch this off like a skylight, this splotchiness will not be there. So a lot of people try to avoid this skylight, using skylight in ray tracing, but I like to use it so much because it brings absolute realism in the scene. So if I can go here and I show the effect of skylight, see how realistic it is. It's amazing. If we use skylight, it makes the scene so real, but at the cost of this GI splotchiness. But this can easily be removed by the help of this sample per pixel. So when you are rendering the final quality, you can just go ahead and use 64. You see all those blotchiness just disappeared. You can see here now, no bugs there now because of skylight, and all the features and the properties of a skylight we are using in the scene, but no bugs of a skylight. So I like to use the skylight this way. So just use the skylight and just ignore this splotchiness while you are working, because they can be easily removed while rendering the final cinematic video by increasing this to 64. I hope you all are understanding, or you are understanding what I'm trying to explain here. And these all optimization plays a very amazing role, and these are all interlinked, already applied in the whole process which I have taught in the tutorial to make this happen, that we have a good result of cinematic video which I just showed you using the DJView viewer. So let's go ahead and proceed to point 11. Try to use color on far object in the scene where character cannot go, instead of using texture. So if suppose like here you see this railing, and on railing never use any textures, okay, because this character is not going to see it from near around, so it will be blocked by here because the door is closed. So anytime the character cannot reach to a specific object, never and ever try to use texture, always use color. and just use that color of the same texture it might have if character was going to that area. But if the character cannot go near to any object, just use simple color instead of texture. That will help gain FPS in your scene. And then let's go to 12. Try not to use texture more than 2K for a ray tracing. So always, so that is why I went ahead in this Quixel Breeze and make the default setting to 2K. So even it's a ray tracing scene, as of now with the technology we have in Unreal Engine, never try to use texture more than 2K, and always try to use texture in like JPEG format. Instead of using any other format, try to use JPEG format. So if I select here, like we go into this local and select any of the material and go to export setting, you see here texture resolution 2K and texture format JPEG. So this is what it's telling about. Try not to use texture more than 2K if it's a ray tracing. But if it's a baked scene, you can go ahead and use 4K resolution, no problem, and no problem at all. But if it's ray tracing, don't use more than 2K, and preferably if it's possible, try to use 1K resolution. That will be even better. But I don't use 1K. I always stick with 2K resolution, and that we get a very good quality of cinematic. But if it's 1K resolution, it will always be better than having 2K for a ray tracing. And now let's go to point 14. Use material with less complexity. And that means if we select any data smith or maybe megascan material, so this is a megascan material. No, this is not a megascan material. So let's go ahead. Okay, this one is also not megascan. So maybe let's select this one, and if we click OK here, okay, this one is also not a megascan. Let's see this one. Yeah, this one is a megascan. So when you are giving properties and features, so that when you make an instance and apply it on a material, you can get all the properties needed to modify that material. Though you have to add lots of features, so you can add those features, but do not make it complex. Okay, try to keep it simple, and that is the reason I like megascan very much, because everything is so simple, not too much of fancy and crazy steps is going on. Everything is very simple, sober, realistic, and almost all the features that is required for a architecture scene is present in megascan material node, and it's simple. So, and that is our point. So when you are making the master material, keep it simple. Okay, and then in 15, use ray trace ambient occlusion for better realism. So if you want to use ambient occlusion, sometimes I don't use ambient occlusion on every project, but if you want to use ambient occlusion, you can go ahead here and just go to here, and then you can adjust this ambient occlusion to maybe 0.25, and then radius to 3, and then this quality to 100. And after that you have to go here, global illumination, like this one, ray trace ambient occlusion. You have to enable it and use the sample at least 4. Okay, you can do this. You can go ahead and intensity make it 0.25, and then radius make it 3, and then quality to 100. And in ray tracing ambient occlusion, you can go ahead enable it, and then sample per pixel make it 4. So you will get a better realism in the scene. But I don't recommend this, and I don't use it every time, so I will just be switching it off as of now. I only use ambient occlusion if it's specifically required for the scene. So now let's go to our next point. You can remove the specular amount on light properties to remove the noise and reflection in the scene. You can remove the specular amount on light properties to remove the noise in the reflection of the scene. Okay. So what you can do is, if you are having or getting lots of noise in the scene, that point tends to explain is, suppose you don't want a hassle of getting noise reflection on this thing, object, material. So you can just go ahead and then just remove this specularity to make it to 0, and then boom, you will have no reflection noise here. Okay, and it can be very easily, when you are rendering a cinematic video, it will be very easy to remove this remaining noise. But this makes scenes very realistic, so try to stick with that, because I have already shown the settings that will remove all this noise or specular noise whatsoever. But you can still remove it from this, like you want to remove the noise, you can remove the specularity from light properties and render the final cinematic using movie render queue option in cinematic under Windows menu. So never use sequencer. So if you go here, settings, cinematic render, and I will right click here and then close all this. Right click, close tab to the right, and I will also close this. So never go ahead when you are rendering a scene for ray tracing. Okay, so when you are rendering the scene for ray tracing, never use this palette to render a scene. After we have this setting of movie render queue, it's so amazing and incredible. I cannot emphasize how powerful this is and how amazing it is to render a ray trace scene for cinematic video. So never use this. This is like old fashioned, and anyway this epic engine or epic game will is going to remove this palette in future. So render movie settings is going to be removed in coming times, like it was removed, that this matinee was removed from here. So this one is also going to be removed eventually in maybe 2 or 3 release, next 2 or 3 release. So this will be the prime rendering option for it, for Unreal Engine, and it's already very powerful and amazing tool here. So don't use this to render a ray trace cinematic. You can use this to render a baked version, but for rendering a full ray tracing, don't use it. And that is what this tool option made was about. And as of now, fully ray traced scene in Unreal Engine can be mainly used for cinematic walkthrough render. Yeah, that is very simple and easy to explain. So as of now, we are using only final gather in our scene. Okay, if we go ahead and post process volume, we can see that only final gather and GI is on, and we have ray tracing is on, and ray tracing uh, reflection is on, and we can do whatever you want and do anything. Like we can go ahead and play and walk in real time, and we can move everything. All those fancy stuff of real time is done. But the as of now, at this moment, the main usability of ray tracing in Unreal Engine is to render high quality cinematic video with all absolute realistic ray trace reflection, and absolutely realistic reflection, and realistic translucency, and high quality cinematic which will only be rendered in 1 hour, maybe 2 hour. That was to be rendered in max for 100 hours or maybe 500 hours. That same thing can be rendered inside Unreal Engine in 1 hour and 2 hours. So main purpose of using ray tracing in Unreal Engine is only to render high quality cinematic video as of now. But as this ray tracing will be optimized by Epic Games, we can now, after few time or maybe in coming time, we can go ahead and use that for the interactivity same as the baked version. But I think it will take a few more time. But the future of this ray tracing is incredible, and the technology is simply phenomenal and amazing. As of now, as how much I have explained, understand about ray tracing and Unreal, as of now, this technology has extreme potential for the future. So the better we understand the whole technology, the better it will be for us in the future, because this technology is going to take over the world. So if we learn it as fast as possible before learning from others, it will be amazing for us to for a point of like exceeding in this field further. So let's summarize our tutorial, and on that regard, what let me summarize the whole process again for a bit. So we went ahead in 3D Studio Max. We took a scene inside Max. So now I'm trying to summarize everything. And one more thing, this Excel sheet consists of the brief of every step I have taken. So even if you, this can act as a very useful tool for you in future, and I may provide this whole Excel sheet, but I'm not sure about it, but I'll try my best to provide this Excel sheet to you, so that you can go ahead and see anytime you can see it. And these are all the material packs to have as a material library for code floor and all those things. So let me summarize the whole concept we used inside this Unreal Engine for ray tracing. So first of all, what we did is we went ahead in Windows and then cross-checked the Windows for latest quality, latest version of the Windows, and then check the DirectX version, whether it's DirectX 12 or not, and all those things. And when we took a 3ds Max scene and we just did a few optimization on that, and then after that we exported the scene into Unreal Engine, and we went ahead in Unreal Engine, we made a scene, and then we exported, we just went in the properties and then gave lots of parameters to help support the Unreal Engine ray tracing, and then we went ahead and then we brought some. So I think it's not too much of importance, like I have to summarize everything, because you already have learned in the entire process of the tutorial, and you can also get an idea from here. So I'll go ahead here and now click this. So I hope this whole tutorial was useful for you, and I hope you understand the entire process. And with the help of this tutorial, now you can make cinematic video render or cinematic real ray traced scene inside Unreal Engine very easily. And if you have any doubt about the whole concept and the whole process, you can get and contact me, and I will be providing the contact details in the tutorial and uh, on my website. You can go ahead and then contact me using a Skype, or maybe Messenger, or maybe email ID, or maybe Sky, Facebook. Any you can use any means to contact me if you want to discuss on any point I have taught in the tutorial, or you are facing any issue with understanding anything. You can go ahead, get in contact with me, and I will try my best to that explain the problem you are facing as good as possible. So on that regard, I will close this tutorial, and I will really wish that you guys learn from my tutorial and exceed in your life and use this amazing technology and various projects. And whenever you make any scene from so whenever you make any scene by learning techniques from my tutorial, please do share with me, so that I can see and I can be happy about it, that my tutorial is being used and is helpful for you. And on that regard, I will close this tutorial, and I will be meeting you all in next tutorial as soon as possible. So bye bye, take care, and then good luck.